How does the band handle when there's like little squabbles over parts of songs? Like if somebody brings something and you start playing and somebody wants to take it in a different direction and not everybody's agreeing, what's the communication like and who ultimately wins?
I mean, I think we were trusting Andrew really on this record because he's the producer and we're going to make a record with you. You might as well trust his instincts and go with it. So I think that having him there was helpful in terms of just navigating that stuff. I think if anything gets too squabbly, we just move on to something else and that this gets left behind probably more than anything. So I think all of us, got to see how the group process ended up being a better process for almost everything, And it was all very quick, which made it better. It's like sort of ripping the Band-Aid off quick, It's like you got an idea, throw it down. It's already changed. It's, it's gone before you, And it was great. And Ed is inspired in those situations too. He writes so quickly when he's in on the process of the writing as opposed to just getting a demo and like sitting with it in his room for weeks. It's like it's much more fruitful for him to be there saying, let's double that, or I don't like that part. Let me get back to that other thing quicker, or I need a chord here. I need a different chord getting me to this, to this next bit. And then it just becomes kind of a group process that's not the same as an individual kind of writing a song, but it's, and I think that's what's special about this record is that it really is a lot of reconstructed sort of quickly ideas,
And I think we learned a long time ago that if you're fighting too hard for something, it usually, even if it ends up on the record, I don't think it ends up being a joyful memory for the rest of the band. And even a joyful memory for you as the writer, I think. So I feel like as I've gotten older, I welcome like ripping my thing open, and I think it's far more interesting that way. I think the collaborative process to me is like one of the most interesting things. Like if you can really trust the other people in the band that you're collaborating with, it will usually come back way more interesting and have a different perspective that you can't have if you're just have tunnel vision, for your song. So, it's not that different than how we made, the last couple records with Brendan, really. No. I mean, moving super fast and, if Ed's not sort of latching onto something, moving on to the next thing. And so I think we're better in those
I think Andrew's enthusiasm, his unbridled enthusiasm was an element of it. He never let us get down on ourselves at all individually. For me, like playing in there and sometimes being in there and going, I don't know what I'm doing. It's like he would, no matter what, he would just be like, oh, that's great. No, wait, go back. Like he would just have this like, you're going to figure this out. You're my favorite guitar player. It's like just not necessarily that, but it's just like he just infused you with, he wasn't going to let it get you down. And he knew that that's not where you're going to get a good performance. So it's manipulative on one hand, but it also works, and so I think, his knowing the songs and loving Pearl Jam so much and just being a fan, it was a major factor in sort of keeping the thing moving along. And him really, actually, I know how to play all your songs. I can show you where, this should have been a minor chord, but you didn't. It's just cool. I'm so glad that you did that. So he had a lot of energy for that. So that was a big factor, I think, in the record.
Yeah, and talking about those times when you're stuck, he could reference old songs. He would be like, like that thing that you do in Hail Hail, or he would reference things. You'd be like, and sometimes that would unstick you because it would like pull you out of a pattern that you were stuck in, and it would make you think about it in a different pattern. And I never felt stuck for more than a minute.
Wow.
When you were working on stuff with him. So
I'm
that's
fascinated by Andrew Watt because he's now produced albums for Ozzy Osbourne, Iggy Pop. Yeah. He's working with you guys, the Rolling Stones last record.
Yeah, he's just going through his collection of childhood bands and going, I'm going to work with this band and I'm going to work with this band. It's all his reality. We're just part of his dream right now, which is great. We'll take a ride with him.
It's incredible. And was there anything, since he has such a deep knowledge of Pearl Jam, was there anything from your catalog that he felt like he wanted to hear more of from a fan perspective?
Completely. But he wouldn't necessarily tell us exactly what that was. But I think he wanted us to write more kind of collectively and quickly, kind of probably more like our earlier process was, where it's like we didn't have any time or we never even realized you could have more time. And so stuff was just happening quick and nobody had time to think about it too much. And he wanted to make a heavy record, I think. He really wanted it to be an aggressive Pearl Jam record. And from the get-go. So, and he had great sounds right away. You know, we just went in his studio and he kind of had stuff kind of set up. You could go on and try this amp or try that guitar, but it was all kind of dialed in. So stuff was sounding good, like kind of immediately. So that was good. He works fast, kept us interested for sure.
And I had a lot of conversations after that first session, you know, like phone conversations with him where he would ask about how did this song get written? How did that song get written? And so I think he was like trying to mine like, okay, whatever the process was on that particular song, we need to revisit that process. Not necessarily like a similar riff or a similar sound even, but like the creative process. I think he was really trying to tap into, you know, ultimately, I think the best way we work with each other. I mean, I think we talk about it all the time. I think we all have strengths that sometimes, like if we lean into those strengths, it turns out better.